If you're out there dating, or maybe even just watching it all unfold, you've probably felt it, haven't you? That really heavy feeling that finding love today feels kind of, well, broken. And it's not just you feeling discouraged or, disconnected. So many people are asking, why does finding a real connection feel so much harder these days?
Hmm.
So our mission in this deep dive is to really try and unpack that. We're going to look at the big cultural shifts happening, pull in some expert psychological insights, dissect some, frankly, wild viral trends, and reflect on the real-life experiences shaping relationships now. And maybe most importantly, explore how we might, find our way back to each other.
Yeah, and to help us do that, we've gathered quite a mix of sources. We've got raw personal stories from people dating right now, some solid psychological research digging into the why behind it all, and cultural commentary looking at the bigger picture. We've sort of sifted through all that to pull out the key nuggets, really, to help you get a handle on this complex landscape of modern love.
Okay, let's get into it. At the heart of modern dating, it really does feel like this constant tug of war of expectations. I actually heard a friend describe her frustration so well the other night. She said something like, we pour all this emotional energy into dating therapy, self-reflection, reading all the books on attachment styles, and what do we get? Breadcrumbed by guys who just don't seem to feel any urgency to commit because, well, they've got endless options. But then you hear the other perspective, too. I had a male friend make the counterpoint, saying, look, I just want to feel stable myself before I even think about a serious relationship. It really throws that tension into sharp relief, doesn't it?
Yeah, it absolutely does. And what's really striking is how these rapid social changes and the shifts in gender roles are fueling this kind of simmering resentment on both sides. Roles that maybe felt clearer before are now totally up in the air, and that leads to a lot of confusion, a lot of bewilderment. You hear women worrying, am I asking for too much, or will my success intimidate him? Like, they need to sort of dim their own light. And then men often fear being labeled maybe toxic or just feeling like they're not good enough for these increasingly independent women. It's this environment of constant second guessing.
Right. And social media just pours gasoline on that fire, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It takes these personal frustrations and turns them into these huge viral generalizations. It really feels like it engineers this digital battle of the sexes sometimes.
Precisely. And the relationship therapist, Esther Perel, she has such a sharp observation here. She says, we are doing romantic consumerism. We're treating finding a partner like shopping online. You have your checklist of requirements. You want the best features. She says we want to ask more but pay less in terms of actual effort or compromise.
Like Amazon Prime for soulmates.
Exactly. We want that perfect fit delivered tomorrow, maybe, without really digging deep into compromise or even, what we need to work on ourselves.
Okay, so this connects to a really huge societal shift, something fundamental that's changed the dating game. The incredible rise of women in education and careers. I mean, the numbers are stark. As of 2023, women actually slightly outnumber men in the U.S. college-educated workforce. It's about 51%. And that 51%, it's not just a statistic. It fundamentally changes the dynamic. Women aren't just looking for a partner anymore. Often they're looking for someone who enhances a life they've already built. So that old idea of marrying up financially, it's shifting towards marrying equal, or honestly choosing to stay single unless the partnership genuinely adds value.
Yeah.
That flips the power balance completely.
It's a massive point. Absolutely game-changing. Women's standards have evolved because their circumstances have. Educated, self-sufficient women, they're increasingly looking for partners who bring more to the table than just financial stability.
Sure.
They want men who are, emotionally available, good communicators, respectful equals. It ties into what Greg Mados observed, that viral piece about how dating opportunities for heterosexual men are diminishing as healthy relationship standards increase. It's not about being overly demanding. It's a reflection of higher expectations when you already provide for yourself.
Now, this shift has this really interesting and frankly quite controversial side effect bubbling up online. Have you come across the sprinkle TikTok trend?
Oh, yes. Shira 7.
Yeah, sure is 7. Millions of followers. And her advice is, well, it's blunt. She tells women things like, laugh if a man suggests splitting the bill, or use men for money alone, definitely not for emotional support, and even suggesting cheating on anyone who's, quote, broke. It's pretty provocative stuff.
It really highlights a paradox, though, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because even with women's financial independence soaring, you still have surveys showing like 72% of Americans think the man should pay on a first date. So there's this lingering cultural expectation, right? Men still feel some pressure to be the provider, at least initially. And for women, even successful ones, the dilemma can become, okay, I've worked hard, I've built my life, why are so many men seemingly not meeting me where I am? They're looking for that equal partnership, but sometimes the old scripts get in the way.
And flipping that coin, we see the reports about modern men struggling quietly, often. You hear about the lonely single men crisis, and it's backed by data. Pew Research found 63% of men under 30 are single. Compare that to just 34% of women in the same age group. That's a huge gap. It suggests a lot of men are feeling left out of the dating scene.
Yeah, and one major factor there seems to be dating apps. They often operate like a winner-take-all market. A small percentage of men, usually the most conventionally attractive or wealthy, get the vast majority of attention. And since about 62% of dating app users are men, the competition is just incredibly fierce for the average guy. They face constant rejection or just silence. And that experience it can lead some men to withdraw entirely, or sadly, it can curdle into anger, sometimes even misogyny.
Which feeds right into this idea of a crisis of masculinity, The traditional male roles, the stoic provider, the protector they've eroded, but clear new models haven't really emerged. So many men were raised, maybe implicitly, maybe explicitly, to be tough, hide their feelings, never show vulnerability, and that creates this real relationship skills gap.
Mm-hmm.
They often lack the very emotional communication skills and intimacy that women, quite understandably, are now seeking in a partner. It's not that they don't have feelings.
Right, it's that they've been conditioned, often from boyhood, to suppress them, to keep them locked down.
Right.
You see this play out so clearly on shows like Temptation Island. It's almost a recurring theme. Women complain their partners aren't able to show their vulnerable sides, and it leaves them feeling disconnected, unseen. And the men, they often seem genuinely baffled. They don't always realize how much their emotional guardedness is hurting the relationship because, well, society taught them that real men don't cry. Right? That old trope is still powerful.
Yeah, and this isn't just about dating troubles. This male malaise, it connects to bigger societal issues. We see higher rates of suicide, substance abuse among men in many places. Professor Scott Galloway made a really important point about this. When large numbers of men feel left behind, whether it's economically, socially, romantically, it doesn't just harm them, it can destabilize society.
Which is why it's good that these conversations are finally starting to happen more openly. There's a growing push to actually teach young men relationship skills, communication, emotional intelligence, how to handle rejection constructively. And the key message here, I think, is that helping men grow in these areas doesn't come at women's expense.
Yeah.
It's not a zero-sum game. In fact, men becoming more emotionally healthy benefits absolutely everyone.
Okay, let's switch gears slightly but stay on this theme of division. If you really want to see the gender divide in sharp relief, just spend some time on TikTok. The algorithm is incredibly powerful, and it seems to have created these almost entirely separate echo chambers. One for disillusioned young men, another for fed-up young women. It really does feel like a gender war playing out in short video clips.
That's quite something. On what gets called men's TikTok, you find a lot of this red pill content. Influencers, sometimes controversial figures like Andrew Tate, basically ranting about how feminism has ruined things for men, claiming men's lives are terrible because they lack money, power, sex. And investigations, like one by The Guardian, found that TikTok's algorithm can actually aggressively push this kind of misogynistic content to young male users.
Wow.
Yeah. It can be really seductive if you're a young guy feeling lonely or unsuccessful in dating. It gives you an external target for your frustration. It's not you, it's modern women or society.
And then on women's TikTok, while the vibe is different, you still see this us versus them framing pretty often. Lots of jokes about bare minimum boys, dramatic reenactments of terrible dates, stories about narcissistic exes. I even saw this viral clip from a female dating coach telling women to never directly communicate their needs because, quote, he should just figure it out. If he wanted to, he would, which seems counterproductive.
Definitely counterproductive. And the overall impact of these separate digital worlds, it's widening the empathy gap. It normalizes thinking of the other gender as an adversary, as monolithic block you need to strategize against. It creates these self-fulfilling prophecies, too. As Esther Perel put it, it leads to social atrophy. Nuance just doesn't go viral, does it?
Yeah, it doesn't.
A complex story about a relationship ending gets boiled down to a meme about all men are trash or all women are gold diggers. We end up dating these caricatures, these straw man or straw woman versions of each other, because nuance doesn't get the clicks.
That perfectly leads into another subtle thing, making dating harder. This explosion of therapy speak in everyday conversation. Words like narcissist, gaslighting, love bombing, avoidant attachment. They're everywhere now.
Right. And look, on one hand, it's great that people have more language to talk about psychological concepts and unhealthy dynamics.
Yeah.
That awareness is good. But the downside, these terms get thrown around so casually, they're often overused, misused, and end up pathologizing what might just be normal human flaws or relationship challenges.
Yeah, like the narcissist thing.
Exactly. Actual clinical narcissistic personality disorder. Estimates put it at maybe 1% of the population.
Fair.
But the hashtag NarcTalk on TikTok has, what, nearly 2 billion views?
Wow, 1% versus 2 billion views, that's stark.
It is. And casually labeling your ex a narcissist because they were selfish or ended things badly, it can feel validating, sure, but it often stops deeper self-reflection. It kind of absolves you of looking at your own part in the dynamic and just dehumanizes the other person.
It's like how gaslighting, which refers to a really specific, insidious pattern of manipulation to make someone doubt their reality. Now people use it if someone just disagrees with them or remembers an event differently.
Precisely. It dilutes the meaning of these important terms. And the broader danger here is that it fosters this kind of zero-tolerance mentality for normal human imperfection. The minute someone disappoints us or makes a mistake, instead of trying to communicate or understand, the temptation is to slap on a label, oh, they're toxic, that's a red flag, they're clearly avoidant, and just cut them off.
Right, quick diagnosis, quick exit.
Yeah, it can make us less patient, less compassionate daters. We become quicker to discard people using these psychological labels as a sort of convenient justification.
Okay, let's talk about another really painful aspect of modern dating that leads into ghosting. Just disappearing, cutting off all contact with no explanation. And it's shockingly common. Depending on the study you look at, surveys suggest anywhere from maybe 13% to 23% of adults have been ghosted, but some studies report figures as high as 72%.
It's incredibly prevalent. And for the person who gets ghosted, it's just this horrible, gut-wrenching experience. There's absolutely no closure. You're just left spinning, right, ruminating. What did I do wrong? Was it something I said? Did they meet someone else? Your mind just races trying to fill the void.
Yeah, the uncertainty is brutal.
It really is.
Yeah.
And psychologists point out that social rejection actually activates the same pathways in the brain as physical pain. So it literally hurts. Imagine getting ready for a date, feeling hopeful, maybe excited, and then just silence, nothing. It's an agonizing feeling.
People who've been ghosted often report feeling, yeah, hurt, sad, angry, but also humiliated. It can feel worse than a straightforward breakup because there's no explanation, no chance to understand. It can trigger anxiety, stress. You keep replaying interactions, those phantom thoughts, and there's this weird sense of ambiguous grief for something that just vanished into thin air.
And technology, let's be honest, especially dating apps, has definitely made ghosting easier and more common. Swipe culture can make connections feel superficial, disposable. Digital communication also strips away a lot of the social cues that normally foster empathy. It's easier to ghost a profile picture than a person you've shared physical space and conversation with. As one person put it, there's still just a profile to you, not really a person. So that empathy connection is weaker.
So why do people actually do it? What are the reasons?
Well, there are a few key factors.
Mm-hmm.
A big one is just plain conflict avoidance. People dread confrontation. They dread having that awkward conversation. So silence feels like the easier path. It's kind of cowardice cloaked as convenience, as someone described it.
Mm-hmm.
Attachment styles can play a role, too. Someone with an avoidance style might naturally withdraw when intimacy increases. Someone anxious might ghost preemptively out of fear they'll be rejected first. Then there's the grass is greener effect, fueled by apps. Always wondering if someone better is just a swipe away. Plus, cognitive dissonance ghosters tell themselves things like, oh, it's actually kinder not to say anything, or I don't owe them an explanation to avoid feeling guilty.
Right, justifying it to themselves.
Exactly. And finally, just sheer decision fatigue and digital overload. Juggling multiple conversations on apps can be exhausting, leading to burnout where people just drop off.
It seems like younger generations experience this more, or maybe see it differently.
Yeah, the numbers are higher for younger adults. Something like 84% of Gen Z and millennials say they've been ghosted. And interestingly, about 67% of those who've been ghosted admit they've also ghosted someone else. It becomes reciprocal. Younger people are also a bit more likely to see it as acceptable in certain situations, like if a date was genuinely creepy or made them feel unsafe. And gender plays a role too. Women report ghosting more often, sometimes citing safety concerns. And interestingly, 91% of women who ghost say they feel relief afterward, compared to 80% of men.
But setting aside safety concerns, which are totally valid, most ghosting really does feel like a breach of basic courtesy, doesn't it? It often comes across as selfish, just prioritizing your own comfort over treating someone else with dignity.
Absolutely. It's fundamentally an ethical failure, in most cases, to afford someone basic respect. While safety is paramount, most ghosting isn't about safety, it's about convenience. And then you have the modern twist of orbiting, where the ghoster vanishes from direct communication, but still lingers on your social media, watching your stories, liking posts. It's incredibly confusing and can prolong the hurt.
Ugh, orbiting. Yeah, that's just weird. Are apps doing anything about this?
Some are trying. Hinge has those your turn prompts to nudge conversations along. And there are newer apps popping up, like Snack or After, that are experimenting with actually banning or penalizing users who ghost frequently, trying to build in some accountability.
Interesting. Okay, so we've talked about these big trends, the gender dynamics, the tech impact, therapy speak, ghosting. Let's bring it down to specifics. We looked at some dating diaries entries, real stories, and one really stood out as a kind of catalog of red flags. This woman met a guy, let's call him D, on a Cupid, and his behavior right from the start was just, wow, red flag city.
Okay, let's hear it.
So first off, major financial irresponsibility spending way beyond his means. That was red flag number one. Then he says he wants relationships just for fun, but also wants kids, just not marriage. Then he says he doesn't even believe in love, calling it a social construct.
Whoa, contradictory much.
Totally. Then he openly talks about wanting multiple wives. He'd use vulnerable things she shared against her later. He explicitly demanded control, actually saying, "Can't you just listen and agree with whatever I say?"
Oh my goodness.
Gets worse. He expected a partner to stay home, raise kids, have zero income or assets tied to him without being married, and insisted raising kids financially was only the mom's job. He had this traditional mindset, but only the parts that benefited him.
Wow, that's quite a list.
And the kicker, he told her she needed to lose more weight, even though she was tiny, like 45 kilos, 158 centimeters, which is about 99 pounds, and 5'2". Oh, and apparently he didn't use soap when he showered, just water.
Okay, the soap thing is quirky, but the rest, that's a masterclass in warning signs. It just screams control issues, lack of respect, fundamental value clashes. That story really underscores how vital those early conversations are about the big stuff. Money, commitment expectations, parenting roles, emotional labor, initial charm, maybe like him spending lavishly at first, can easily mask these deep incompatibilities.
Exactly. And his story isn't unique in terms of the types of red flags. Our sources mention a whole range of common ones people should look out for. Things like consistently poor communication, being dismissive, bad-mouthing every single ex, a total lack of accountability. It's like always someone else's fault.
The blame game.
Yeah. Love bombing, that intense early idealization followed by manipulation or control. Emotional unavailability, just being hot and cold all the time, leaving you confused.
Inconsistency, yeah. Big one.
Secrecy, being terrified of real talk, emotional immaturity, even things like insisting on paying for everything in a way that feels controlling, not generous, constant criticism, gaslighting, invalidating your feelings, rushing commitment too fast, ignoring your boundaries, infidelity, the list goes on.
It does. So what's the takeaway for you listening to this? It's really about using this knowledge proactively. Focus on having open conversations early about your core values, what you want for the future. Set clear boundaries from the start. Pay attention how someone treats you, especially when you disagree. And remember, every interaction, even the ones with major red flags like D, teaches you something valuable about your own needs, your deal breakers, and what genuine respect looks like for you.
Okay, listening back to all of this, it can sound pretty bleak. It's easy to feel like, wow, men and women are just completely at odds. Maybe dating is doomed. But I really want to pivot us towards a more hopeful outlook here, because it truly doesn't have to be a zero-sum game between the genders.
That is such a critical insight. One gender's progress, or focus on their needs, absolutely does not have to mean the other gender loses out. That's a false dichotomy. In fact, the research and experts suggest the opposite. When both men and women evolve and step up, maybe men developing more emotional fluency, women validating men's efforts and needs too, it creates this positive feedback loop, a virtuous cycle that actually improves relationships for everyone.
So the challenge then is shifting our mindset, right? Moving away from blame, from scoring points in this perceived gender war, towards more understanding and, dare I say, teamwork.
Exactly. Teamwork and navigating this confusing landscape.
And that can start small. Like, if you're dating a guy who seems emotionally awkward, maybe instead of writing him off, consider he might never have been allowed to be vulnerable. Maybe a gentle, open question could help him open up, rather than judgment. Or if you're a guy feeling frustrated because a woman seems to expect you to plan everything or pay initially, maybe consider the societal messages she's navigating. Making that effort up front can signal you're serious and safe, which might allow her to reciprocate more fully later in ways that align with your strengths.
It comes back to recognizing the shared goal. Deep down, most people, regardless of gender, genuinely want a loving, supportive partnership built on mutual respect. There isn't actually a men versus women scoreboard that matters. We all lose when we engage in that battle. We all win when we figure out how to understand and complement each other's strengths and support each other's growth.
And, you know, there are encouraging signs. You hear about more young parents consciously trying to raise their sons with greater emotional literacy, teaching them it's okay to feel and express, and raising daughters who are assertive and independent, but also value kindness, empathy, cooperation. You can imagine a future generation maybe seeing each other more as individuals, as people first, rather than just representatives of team man or team woman.
So thinking about practical steps for you listening right now, what can you actually do? Well, start by challenging your own negative generalizations. Catch yourself if you're thinking all men are or all women just want.
Hmm.
Maybe consciously detox from some of the online content that fuels that negativity and division. Prioritize direct, honest, vulnerable communication in your own interactions, even when it feels awkward.
Yeah, like maybe don't follow the advice of never telling a man what you need.
Please don't follow that advice. Communicate. And you could even use pop culture, like a show like Temptation Island, not just for entertainment, but as a low-stakes way to start conversations with a partner or potential partner about emotional availability, communication styles, trust, all that tricky stuff.
That's a great idea. Use it as a prompt. So, yeah, maybe love feels harder right now because we're in the middle of this massive renegotiation. We're collectively figuring out what partnership looks like in an age of greater equality, higher expectations for emotional connection, and shifting social norms. We're forging a new model.
And if there's one key ingredient needed for that forging process, it's empathy. Empathy truly feels like the antidote to so much of this modern dating malaise. When we make an effort to see the person across from us with empathy, understanding their hopes, their fears, the pressures they face, just like we face ours, the entire dynamic can shift. It moves away from a transactional mindset, what can I get, or a defensive one, how might this person hurt me, towards something more like, who is this person, really? And how can we build some understanding between us?
I love that. And maybe a final thought to leave you with is just remembering our shared humanity in all this. We're all kind of stumbling through it together. The person nervously checking their phone before a date, the one anxiously swiping late at night, the couple having that same argument again, the person feeling lonely. We're all just humans yearning for connection, doing our best in what feels like a really confusing time. So maybe the simplest thing we can do is approach each other with just a little bit more gentleness, a bit more compassion.
Beautifully put. If we can combine the best of the modern tools we have, striving for equality, valuing emotional honesty, demanding respect, with those timeless virtues, patience, compassion, empathy, we really can start to bridge this divide. Because ultimately, love isn't a battle to be won, it's a journey we have to take together.
So if love truly is a journey we take together, here's something to think about. What's one small step you're willing to take today or this week to help bridge that divide you perceive and approach your next connection or even your current one with a renewed sense of empathy and shared purpose?